All right, everybody, welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we are going to be giving you guys 8 fantasy football hot takes that we feel very strongly about. And we also had football today. I know it's just the Hall of Fame game, but it's been so long. I'll take any football I can get. And my boy DTR, Dorian Thompson Robinson, looked pretty electric out there. How are you, Shane?
Yeah, I'm good. It felt good to finally have, I don't know, I guess you could say something to look forward to, although it wasn't much. Last year's Hall of Fame game with Josh Jacobs playing in the second half was a lot more electric. But it's always fun to watch some sort of NFL football. But I'm excited to talk about these super spicy hot takes today. I think they'll be I don't think they're too far out there. Maybe if we had Josh on this episode, he'd have some pretty ridiculous whatever's past hot takes, that's what he would have. I think we have reasonable hot takes. So it'll be fun to talk about.
I don't even want to know what his hot takes would be. But
Seriously.
do you want to just get into them now? They're going to be pretty good ones.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else about the game tonight we need to
I
talk
mean,
about.
that preseason game, honestly, I watched every snap. It was very uneventful. Dorian Thompson Robinson did look good. He was moving around, and he's just an electric player. That's how he plays. So I think he will have some flashy plays in the NFL. Hopefully, he can make it as a starter one day. But other than
Yeah.
that, I don't really think there's too much to it.
No, there wasn't. It was pretty ugly.
But I am excited, man. It's so crazy that the preseason's already here. It's gonna be fun to start seeing some of these young guys play.
It's August now. August is, I mean, I guess into September, but August is the month of, your fantasy football drafts. I'd say, definitely wait as long as possible. I prefer beginning of September. The longer you wait, the better, the more news you'll know about players and injuries and stuff. But, we're almost there. It's exciting.
Yeah, you definitely want to target that Labor Day weekend for the prime draft season to make sure you get all those preseason injuries out of the way.
Yeah, it lines up pretty good because September 7th, that Thursday night football, if you do your draft a couple days before that, that'd be money.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. But all right, you want to get into the hot takes?
Let's do it.
I'm so excited to talk about my first hot take. I've been wanting to talk about this one all day. Let's get into it. It's going to be one that I feel very, very passionate about. It's Javonte Williams, who's being drafted in the 7th round as the RB 28. I think he will finish higher with more fantasy points than Breece Hall, who's being drafted in the 3rd round as the running back 11.
That
It sounds bold, it sounds crazy, but I mean, Javonte is out there practicing. Sean Payton said today that he's going to be playing in the preseason. He's been playing in camp and he's been moving great, which is a great sign and pretty crazy for Javonte Williams. Meanwhile, Breece Hall, who's being drafted in the 3rd round, is on the pup list and hasn't practiced or even really, been on the field at all with the
Yeah.
team. So I just, they're really close as like talents and prospects. Breece Hall is a great running back, but it might be some recency bias with Javonte Williams being 1 year older, and his rookie season was a year before, and his rookie season was electric, man, electric. So I don't really get this parallel with Javonte going 4 rounds behind Breece Hall. I do want to hear your thoughts on this before I add in some more stats.
I so as you personally, I haven't been very high on Javante, but with the news that's been coming out that he's probably going to play in preseason, if he's fully good to go come week one, I'd be more in on him. I mean, okay, especially at this ADP where he's being drafted. Granted, I feel like that will probably move up a little bit come real draft season. I do still kind of hesitate because this coaching staff they did bring in Samaje P Ryan. They're not going to use him, and I get that that could be a good thing to give him the needed breaks. He's coming off a pretty bad ACL injury, but Samaje still. I mean, he when he was the guy in Cincinnati when Joe Mixon was out, he was so electric. And I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of excited for Samaje P Ryan to get some weeks as the RB1 with no one really behind him. But now that they're going to be splitting the backfield, it's going to be a muddy backfield. Granted, Javante's obviously the better running back. But you making the statement that you think he's going to finish higher than Brees Hall, assuming Brees Hall plays week one, I think that's pretty gnarly. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's why it's a hot take. But I'm definitely rising on Javonte.
Yeah, I personally see Brees Hall kind of starting like week 4. So he's going to
Yeah,
kind of just get off behind. And I really don't see them too far off as players. The Jets are trying to bring in veterans. They brought in Dalvin Cook for a visit. It's not like they're shying away from options. They brought in Abanikanda, who actually looked good today in the
he did.
preseason game. So they have a lot of running backs. So it's like P. Ryan is really good, but he is the only other guy there. And he's just kind of the complementary option. And what the thing that is the reason that he's being drafted so low is the ACL injury was bad. He had like multiple tears and it was really bad and they're hard to come back from. But I mean, this man has proved that he's not really human and he's just a monster on the field and clearly in the weight room because he's clearly putting in a lot of work to already be out there and moving around fine, not even like limited. It's pretty incredible. It's like robot stuff.
Yeah.
And I think he'll be ready week 1 to ball out. And the Broncos are going to run their offense through Javonte. And for some context on just how talented of a running back Javonte is, the running backs with the highest forced missed tackles coming out of the draft in the last decade are Bijan Robinson and Javonte Williams. They have the exact same number. And then Javonte went into the NFL and he was the second in the NFL in forced missed tackles as a rookie behind Derrick Henry. So that's just the player he is. He's truly just an absolute monster that is impossible to tackle. And I really do think he's going to be the steal of fantasy football this year if he's still being drafted around round 7 in a month.
Yeah, where he's being drafted right now could potentially be a massive steal. I think I was just kind of thinking about it. A very good comparison for Javonte right now is Saquon. If you look at Saquon 2 seasons ago, it was his first season back from that ACL injury. I had him in fantasy, and he was no good. And then you look at now 2 years removed, which was last season, he was electric. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a slower season from Javonte. I get we're getting all this training camp hype and stuff, but just coming off that injury, the injury that he had, I wouldn't be shocked if we see a kind of similar season that Saquon had 2 years ago, and then next year, assuming Javonte stays healthy all year this year, he goes crazy next year. But who knows? If he's totally seriously good to go, doesn't have any setbacks, he could burst onto the scene this year. And if you get him in the 7th round, yeah, that's a steal.
No, that's a good point. It does usually take running backs 1 full year to recover, as we saw with Saquon, James Robinson, players like that. We've seen it a lot recently. I think just monitor Javonte Williams this offseason. If you see him in camp, if you see videos of him playing in the preseason soon, just monitor him. If he looks the part, like if he passes the eye test, if he doesn't look like what Najee looked like at the beginning of the year last year, Saquon after he got hurt, if he doesn't look like that and he passes the eye test and he looks as good as he says he's been feeling, then draft the guy because he's gonna be a beast.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy you're gonna have to read what's coming out of, what reports are coming out of from camp. Fall like before your draft, you need to have as much information on him as possible. That's why I was saying it's great to wait as long as possible to draft for situations like this.
Mhm.
You know as much as possible right before the season. So definitely monitor Javonte because yeah, he could be a huge steal.
Yeah. Let's hear your first hot take.
Okay, my first hot take. I've talked about this guy a lot. I've actually talked about both these guys a lot that I'm going to mention. I think my boy Chig Okonkwo will finish higher than Kyle Pitts than Kyle Pitts this year. Um,
Okay.
I, I love Chig. I've been a huge Chig fan since last year. I get he didn't do a whole lot, but he's personally, I think he's being drafted as at his absolute floor right now. He's being drafted in the 11th round. This guy, if people think Kyle Pitts is going to finish as a top 6, top 5 tight end, then Chig will finish 4. Like I don't care. He will finish higher than Kyle Pitts, and I do stand by that. Chig, I think he was a rookie last year. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, he's coming into his second year. I don't even think he's not a tight end. It's so strange to me. He's like a T Higgins wide receiver type
He's
thing. He's huge.
He's literally Delaney Walker, which is awesome because he's also on the tight end. He's like a running back, fullback, tight end, receiver hybrid. It's awesome.
Yeah, and he's sure they brought in DeAndre Hopkins, but that I guess you can look at it both ways. It could affect him negatively and it could affect him positively. Personally, I feel like it's going to affect him positively because now that defense is going to have someone to truly focus on, not just a second year guy, Traylon Burks, and a second year guy, tight end, and Chig Okonkwo. Um, they started really kind of using him towards the end of last year. He finished week 13 on. He finished as a tight end 9, tight end 2, tight end 6. He showed he can do it, and then early on in the year, he finished as a tight end 9 as well once. Last year was definitely up and down, but he showed flashes that he can be a top 6 tight end, top 7, top 5, whatever it is. And I think he's a massive steal. In 11th round ADP, we were just talking about a steal in Javonte. I think Chig is an absolute steal in the 11th round right now.
Yeah, I mean, as a rookie, Chig ranked number 1 in yards per route run, yards per reception, and he tied for first in yards after the catch for per reception for tight ends, which is incredible. We saw it at Maryland. He was a great just athlete. I loved watching his interviews coming out of the draft because he just talked about how he grew to just love blocking and the violent, nasty aspect of the sport, and you can tell he just developed into just a beast on the field. He's a great athlete. He can run the ball like a running back. He can block is one of the better blocking tight ends already as a rookie. He can run great routes. He's a big guy. He's really perfect for what the Titans want to do. And I, like you said, bringing Hopkins in is honestly the best thing that could have happened to him and Traylon Burks both.
Yep.
Chig is going to be their second or third option now with people focusing on Hopkins. It's going to be awesome. I think that he's being drafted like incredibly low for how good he was last year, and some of the names going in front of him are just like boring veterans that don't have any ceiling. So yeah,
Yeah.
draft Chig. He's going to pay the value.
And he's got just a solid veteran quarterback throwing to him. Not, he's not a scrambler, just a pocket passer, and Ryan Tannehill just throwing to him. And I think that's perfect for a guy like this. Just to add value to just add fantasy value to him. So yeah, I'm going to be trying to get all the Chig I can get in all my drafts. But I do believe Chig will finish higher than Kyle Pitts.
And to speak on the Kyle Pitts aspect, I want to be high on Kyle Pitts, man, because he's just such a good prospect and receiver. But when it comes to time to draft him and I have to actually press the draft button on Kyle Pitts, it's the hardest thing in the world to do. I can't get myself to do it. And Chig could be more consistent. Like he probably will be more consistent. That might just be a lock. So I could see it.
Chig's just honestly a safer pick. He's a safer pick. I don't know what else to say. I feel like he's a safer pick, and he's just going to be better than Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Pitts is going at a pretty risky spot, so he's definitely a safer pick.
Yeah. All right, Dan. Let's hear your next hot take.
All right, this is another one I'm pretty passionate about. It is that rookie wide receiver Zay Flowers will lead all Ravens wide receivers in production as a rookie and completely brick out with Lamar. And I think he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year over Quentin Johnston, JSN, and Addison. I think that Zay Flowers is going to take over the Ravens wide receiver 1. I think that he's just so fun and so shifty and such a great receiver that Lamar is just going to love him and what he can do for him after the catch. He's currently being drafted as a wide receiver 46 and the 9th pick in the 9th round, which is pretty surprising for rookie receivers that start. That's usually like league winning territory right there, like first round rookie receivers that start. That's league winner all over right there. I have a few points I want to talk about, and the first point is that Zay Flowers as a prospect is just an absolutely electric playmaker. Lamar Jackson called him a human joystick, and I know that nickname's used a lot, but if it fits anyone, it's definitely Flowers. He's just so shifty and so creative, and he creates a lot of separation in his routes, and he'll be a very easy target for Lamar. And like I said, he was drafted in the first round, so that's always good for these young receivers' productions. And OBJ is the receiver opposite of him, and that really doesn't worry me at all because I feel like all OBJ will be good for at this point is kind of just red zone production, executing touchdowns in the red zone. But other than that, I don't see him having too many yards or catches or like long yards. So I just think that Bateman and OBJ with their injury histories and just recent production, I'm not too worried about them. I think Zay Flowers will easily outproduce both of them every game. And they also bring in Todd Monken as their offensive coordinator, which is huge because he just wants to air it out. He did at Georgia the last few years, and I think that's going to be a tremendous help to Lamar and this Ravens offense. I think it's going to be a big boost. And then Peter King, who's been going around to a bunch of different training camps, said that Zay Flowers is the most impressive rookie that he's seen in all the training camps that he's been to. So a lot of good vibes going on with Zay Flowers this offseason, and I think he's gonna break out and be the league winner.
You just made a ton of great points, and I think I'm a big Zay Flowers fan. I've been drafting him in like all the mock drafts I've been doing. One point you didn't mention, I think, is a good thing is the defenses are going to be so focused on Mark Andrews. You have a veteran in OBJ who's probably going to be hurt. Like you can't say that, but you have a veteran in OBJ and you have Rachaad Bateman, who yes, they both have injury history, and they're both Bateman's not old, but OBJ is older. I think they're going to absolutely utilize the hell out of Zay Flowers. I honestly feel like this is like a Garrett Wilson type of rookie year coming up for him. So yeah, I want all the Zay Flowers I can get. If he does finish as the offensive rookie of the year, absolute steal. He's going almost 10th round. Absolute steal. Get all the Zay Flowers you can get.
Yeah, I think it's honestly possible that he could win the rookie of the year because Jackson Smith and Jigba sharing with DK and Lockett, Quentin Johnson sharing with Keenan and Mike Williams, and Addison sharing with Justin Jefferson. So I really do think Zay Flowers can be that rookie that takes over his wide receiver one spot. And obviously they have Lamar Jackson and Monken and Andrews. They're going to be a really good offense. So I think Zay Flowers is just being straight up slept on and underrated.
Yep. Hopefully Lamar Jackson can stay healthy this year too.
Oh yeah, it definitely relies on that. But let's get into your second one.
Okay. So the next one, my next hot take, I think Chris Olave will finish as a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy football this year. Right now, he's actually being drafted. I don't want to say high, but he's not being drafted like low necessarily. He's being drafted around guys like T. Higgins, who's a wide receiver too, Jalen Waddle, who's also a wide receiver too, DK Metcalf, Devontae Smith, guys like that. But Chris Olave is the wide receiver one for his team with an upgraded quarterback, on a along with the upgraded quarterback, hopefully, most likely, just an overall better offense. Granted, Chris Olave he did have some injuries last year. If he can stay healthy, I truly think he can finish higher than guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, older guys. Got Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb. This is wild. Stephon Diggs. I truly think he can finish higher than guys like that. He proved it last year with I don't want to say poor quarterback play, worse quarterback play than what he's going to have this year. When he was healthy last year, in games he played, week 4, he was, full PPR, wide receiver 6, 23 points, wide receiver 16, wide receiver 16, wide receiver 13, wide receiver 22, wide receiver 7, got hurt, wide receiver, and finished the year wide receiver 15. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be absolutely electric, deep ball threat. I think he's going to be hyper targeted by Derek Carr, and he's going to be he'd be a great wide, because you can get him as your wide receiver too. Technically, if you just go wide receiver, you could have him as your wide receiver 3. So he could add so much value to your fantasy team.
Yeah, Derek Carr he has his flaws, but I think that him and Chris Olave will have a great rapport. And I think top 5 is tough. What would have to happen is he has to stay healthy all season. He has to be that number 1 guy all season. He has to obviously have a good connection with Derek Carr all season. All that stuff is definitely possible. I would say Michael Thomas probably won't be able to play a full season if Olave finishes top 5, which is it's not possible. It's more than possible. It's definitely going to happen. So that's fair. I think that Chris Olave can definitely finish in the top 5. He's being drafted high. He's being drafted
yes.
There's a little margin for error where Chris Olave is being drafted. I think it's definitely worth the risk though, because his situation last year honestly wasn't too like good at all, and he was the best rookie wide receiver last year. I don't care if Garrett Wilson won Rookie of the Year. Chris Olave was the best rookie wide receiver in his situation at least, and I just think he's going to continue that in a much better situation. Even if MT doesn't stay healthy, or even if he does stay healthy, I feel like that could be good for him because that just is going to make their offense more consistent on a down to down basis, and they're going to be putting up more production.
I mean, you're looking at, these games last year when he was a top 20 wide receiver. You're looking at double digit targets, 13, 13, 14, 12. So if he's getting double digit targets majority of the season, I get it's a hot take. That's what we're doing here, but top five is in the cards.
Yeah, I know all of you guys are always in the predicament in your drafts of Chris Olave, T. Higgins, Devontae Smith, or Jalen Waddle.
Yep.
That foursome is literally impossible to choose one. And I'll say, I think Shane might too. I think I have Olave above or at the top of that list with the four now. He's just been completely growing up my list. He's just such a good receiver, and the upside is truly limitless. He could finish as a wide receiver one, and I wouldn't blink an eye.
He was a rookie last year, and I've mentioned this in many episodes we've done in the past, but the year two wide receiver breakout is a legit real thing, and I okay, obviously is Garrett Wilson, but he's Garrett Wilson. Chris Olave is going to have a massive second year breakout.
Yeah, both of them are both going to be in similar spots, and they're both being drafted right next to each other for good reason. Take them both.
All right, Dan, let's hear your third hot take.
All right. This one is going to be another running back for me, and it's someone that I've just been drafting the hell out of this year. I draft him in every single league, every single mock draft I do. It's Joe Mixon, who is being drafted as the running back 17 and drafted in the fourth round. And he was he finished as a seventh running back last year. So he's being drafted 10 spots behind where he finished last year. He missed weeks last year. Samjay Ryan was there last year.
True.
So I don't understand his ADP at all. He was literally going in the first round of drafts last year, and his floor is what he did last year, if that makes sense. So, like, he finishes the RB10 last year. I think he's at least finishing as the RB10, but I think he's going to finish as the top 7 running back. I guess that's my hot take, is that Joe Mixon finishes in the top 7, and he's being drafted as the running back 17. And I mean, there's literally just no backups after P. Ryan left. There's nothing stopping Joe Mixon. This Bengals offense is obviously going to be incredible. Their offensive line was upgraded with Orlando Brown coming over. Joe Mixon's going to be out there every single down. They have Travion Williams behind him. He's not even playing right now. He's hurt. And then Chris Evans and, Chase Brown. So definitely no one that's going to touch any of Joe Mixon's workload. So Joe Mixon in the fourth round is the stupidest steal. Just go take him in your leagues. Don't let him fall to someone else in your league in the fourth round. That's just crazy.
You saying your hot take, I mean, obviously it's definitely a hot take because you claiming he'll be a top 7 running back, that's not going to be easy to do. Look at, you already got McCaffrey, Eckler, Jacobs, Chubb, Saquon. That was that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was 5 right there. I mean, then you got guys like Ramondre, you got Jonathan Taylor, you got Najee, you got Bijan. The running backs are stacked this year. It's not going to be an easy thing to do for Joe Mixon. Granted, I was, with all the stuff going on with Joe Mixon, I had no interest in him. But now that he's back, he's good to go. Samaje Perine is gone. I'm back on the Joe Mixon train. Granted, I do think top 7 is a reach. It's a hot take. I get it. He's in the fourth round. Yes, middle fourth round. That's an absolute steal. I was just looking at,
like, in my personal rankings, I have him ranked right behind Ramondre and right in front of Gibbs and Breece Hall. So, like, I feel like that's pretty reasonable. I don't actually have him as my 7th running back. I have him as like my 12th running back, but still, I mean, that's just stupid. If he's being drafted as the RB17, he finishes the RB10 last year in not too good of a situation, and he still is in his prime. I don't understand. He's going to be a top 10 running back lock this year.
Yeah. Who would you rather have? Joe Mixon or in this guy's current situation where he stands right now, Jonathan Taylor?
I'd rather have John. No, I'd rather have Joe Mixon now. I would have said Jonathan Taylor 3 days ago, but I have Joe Mixon higher now.
I would probably rather have Joe Mixon as well. Jonathan Taylor, that situation is
Yeah,
it's weird. Um, what about would you rather have Joe Mixon or Tony Pollard?
that's tough, but I'm taking Tony Pollard just because I'm really high on him.
Okay, wait. Now let me switch that question up for you because I hesitated when I said Tony Pollard because I didn't realize his ADP was so high. Would you rather have Tony Pollard in the second round or Joe Mixon in the fourth round?
Definitely Joe Mixon in the fourth.
Give me Mixon in the fourth. I wouldn't want to spend a second on Pollard if I can have Mixon in the fourth.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean that's honestly pretty close. Like if they bring in Zeke, then you're screwed taking
yeah.
Pollard in the second, and whoever took Mixon in the fourth is a genius. So that is a very good point. They're pretty close for being 2 rounds apart, and Pollard's more of a projection.
Um, I was going to say something else, but that's a fair hot take. I'm definitely interested to follow along with these hot takes throughout the season to see how
Oh yeah,
they finish.
I'm definitely going to be going back and looking at these because it'll be fun. But let's hear your number three.
My number three guy, I think if you're an NFL seeker, true listener, you'll understand these guys I talk about. I talk about them a lot because I will have all these guys on my team. Hopefully no one in our league is watching this. But my next hot take is Rachaad White. It's about Rachaad White, sorry. And I think he will finish as a top 12 running back. Um,
Wow.
he's on a I don't want to say very bad just to help my case, but he's on a bad offense. Well, we think it's a bad offense. Who knows? Baker could be totally fine. They've got great wide receiver weapons. But right now, Rachaad White, he is going in the seventh round. A couple picks into the seventh round. You're looking at just some other running backs
He's
right
going as
around.
the RB 26, man. That is so
Yeah,
great.
he's going as RB 26. That I mean, so top 12 RB. That's I guess that is quite the hot take. But you got guys like David Montgomery. He's a running back too, being drafted right around him, giving Rachaad White. You have Alvin Kamara, running back 2, 1, 3. Who knows with that backfield? Give me Rachaad White. Isaiah Pacheco. He's definitely an intriguing player, but the way the Chiefs offense works, I don't want him if I can have Rachaad White. Give me Rachaad White. Cam Akers, who's being drafted a whole round sooner than him. Granted, I'm excited for Cam Akers this year. I would much rather have Rachaad White over Cam Akers. I think Rachaad White's an absolute steal in the seventh round. In a full PPR league, you're getting a PPR monster. I shared this stat. Here it is. Oh, I lost it. Oh, Rachaad White. So he was one of 11 rookie running backs over the last decade with over 50 receptions. Um, and that was as a running back too. He didn't even play. He didn't really even play the first half of the year.
And
Uh,
Tom Brady doesn't even like young running backs, and he still
yeah,
liked him because he's really good.
yeah. It's like you're looking at. It wasn't until week 10 and then their bye week and then week 12 when he really kind of started being relevant and productive. Um, so I'm trying to pull this up. So targets you're looking at starting with week 12, 9 targets, 6 targets, 5 targets, 1 target, 4 target, 5 targets. I mean, if he's getting targets like that all season long, I feel like this is a top 12 running back lock. You got to sprinkle in some touchdowns in there. You got to hope he's efficient on the ground, and I just hope the Bucks are better than people are expecting them to be because I'm a big Rachaad White fan. He's all alone in this backfield. They have absolute garbage behind him. He's going to be the guy. So I'm definitely excited for him. If you can get him in the seventh round, uh, I think top 12 running backs in the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, he's still going to be getting a lot of targets because Baker's not really much of a runner. So when the pocket collapses, he's just going to be checking it right down to Rachaad White every time, especially once he starts doing it and you realize how good Rachaad is after the catch. He's electric as a receiver. He's one of the better receiving backs that true receiving backs that we've seen come out of the draft the last few years. So really excited to see how he can do and is with the backfield is his. with him as the featured back, I really think he can do it. He can be a 3 down back, and the Bucks O line is also improved. They have 2 good receivers that can put up points for this offense. So I think he's going to definitely put out some output. And I don't know if I'd go as far as top 12, but I think he can easily be a top 20 running back, and probably definitely higher. Top 20 would be floor.
Yeah, I think I feel like it's pretty low risk right now with where he's being drafted. Personally, I feel like it's almost a guarantee he's going to outperform his ADP.
Yeah, kind of similarly to Joe Mixon, just a little bit lower.
Totally.
All right. And with that, we will get into my last guy, and it is uh, rookie quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. I think Anthony Richardson is going to finish as a top 7 quarterback in fantasy football. He's
Whoa.
currently being drafted as the quarterback 12 in the 9th round, which is pretty crazy to me because personally, I like high upside options in fantasy. I love high upside quarterbacks. I can't ever take a quarterback if it isn't a high upside option. I just can't do it. So if you wait on quarterback, like you don't draft one of the top 5 guys, or even 6 guys, Anthony Richardson in round 9 is still my top target after that, because I love upside in fantasy, and Richardson is literally the definition of upside in the NFL. I mean, with his rushing ability and his freakishly rocket arm, Richardson's genuinely like one of the highest upside quarterbacks to ever come out, if not the highest upside quarterback to ever come out physically, just because his tools are unlike anything we've ever seen before. He's going to be very hard to game plan against because of that rushing ability. He has Shane Steichen calling plays for him. He called plays for Herbert a few years ago, his rookie year. He called plays for Jalen Hurts last year, and I think he's going to draw up that same running game that Jalen Hurts succeeded at last year. And I feel like Richardson could be a version of Jalen Hurts, last year's Jalen Hurts, and that's somehow going in round 9. So that could definitely be a fantasy football league winner. And I think he's going to pay off if you can't get one of those top breakout established quarterbacks.
So yeah, that's definitely a hot top 7 quarterbacks. You're looking at, you got Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow. That's 4. And you got Lamar, that's 5. Herbert, that's 6. And then, if he slides in there at 7, that could be above, Fields, Lawrence, Geno Smith. I don't know. I'm not, that's hot. I
Yeah.
do like Anthony Richardson this year. Not he obviously the rushing upside, it's there. I feel like he's gonna be a rushing monster. I mean, dude could freaking rush for 1,000 yards with no Jonathan Taylor back there. Watch out. But he's got a rocket arm. Um, he is if I were to wait on quarterback, he is a guy I would want to target. Because you got I'd rather have him over Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, he's just weird. I'd rather have him over Dak.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially when you consider that you can wait a few rounds and draft him.
I would rather have him over Tua. Those 3 guys I just mentioned are being drafted before Anthony Richardson. The upside on Anthony Richardson is much more worth it than those guys I just mentioned. Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, guys like that. I'd pass on it and I'd take Anthony Richardson just for the pure upside. Granted, it might start out slow. It could take a couple weeks, but it could be worth it. His upside is huge, and as a rookie, it could pay off for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's just going to be really hard to game plan against, like I said. And I think he's going to be kind of like how Justin Fields succeeded in fantasy last year and finished as a top 10 quarterback. I think he can just kind of get that kind of production, just kind of crazy runs, crazy athletic throws. He's just a fast learner. He's just such a good prospect, with a freakishly good prospect with crazy uh, potential. Like if you watch his games at Florida, there will be some plays that he makes a clear mistake, and then in that same game he'll go back and he fixes it, and he completely like made his mind and like just developed that quickly. It's pretty crazy how fast this guy has developed in just his 1 year starting at Florida. So I think the sky really is the limit. I mean, there will be growing pains. This Colts team isn't perfect, but I think Anthony Richardson can be a league winner. And like you said, the guys going around him just aren't exciting in fantasy. They're not going to get you that. There's 12 other teams in your leagues. You have a really little chance of winning your league. So shoot for upside. Shoot for the guy that's going to give you that higher chance, because you don't have a good chance of winning your league statistically.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pure upside pick, top 7. That's gnarly, but hey, that's why we're here. It's fun, hot.
It's gonna happen. Let's hear your last guy.
All right,
Last
yeah.
hot
So
take.
the last hot take for the episode, I've got another tight end. My boy Darren Waller will be a top three, probably top three tight end behind Kelsey and Andrews.
I love
Um,
it.
that's I'd say that's not necessarily spicy like my others, but that's pretty warm. Um, you got guys like TJ Hawkinson, who's looking really good on the Vikings. Obviously, George Kittle, Dallas Goddard. So you got really good tight ends, but Darren Waller in his new situation, he is clearly the number one guy. Like who's the number one wide receiver
Darren
for the
Waller.
well, yeah, but who's number one wide receiver?
No, that's just a point I wanted to make for you is I
Yeah,
think Darren Waller will be their number one receiver because the rest
yeah.
of the receivers are all like short guys like Jalen Hyatt, Sterling Shepard. Obviously, those aren't their starters. They have Isaiah
Wanda,
Hodgins,
Wanda Robinson.
Wandell Robinson.
They
They just
have
have like a lot. Oh, Paris Campbell, like a lot of those slot type of receivers. And
yeah.
Isaiah Hodgins is the only outside guy, but like, or Darius Slayton too. But other than Darius Slayton and Isaiah Hodgins, the rest are just little slot receivers. So
Well,
Darren Waller is the alpha.
yeah, and Darius Slayton, quite frankly, I think he's good for Darren Waller. He send Darius Slayton deep, make them worry about him, and then open up the middle of the field.
You know?
So basically, they have like a they have like a million little tiny midget slot guys, and they have this behemoth of a man in Darren Waller. If this dude could just for once, stay healthy, if he's got to figure something out with those hamstrings. I don't know if there's something in the air in Vegas that his hamstrings were freaking jello. So if he can figure out his hamstrings and play a full season, this dude will be a top three tight end. He is also where he's being drafted, end of the sixth round, the sixth, seventh turn right now is where he's being drafted. That I don't know if we mentioned him in our steal or did we do our steal episode yet? Did we do
Uh,
an episode for steals? I feel
we
like we
did,
did.
but we didn't mention him.
I feel like we should have mentioned Darren Waller because that's
Yeah,
an absolute steal.
yeah,
Um, Getting a guy like him, who, sure, it's my personal opinion, but who could finish as a top three tight end. I bet there's actually a lot more people out there that do believe that. That could add so much value to your team to get a guy like this in this onesie tight end position that late.
yeah. I think teams are going to start copying the Chiefs' format of having a star alpha tight end as their wide receiver one, like Travis Kelce. And I think that Brian Dable, a really smart offensive mind, kind of wants to do something similar with Darren Waller here and Travis Kelce. And if that's or that something similar to Travis Kelce, and if
Yeah,
that's the plan here, that is so exciting because as we saw last year, there wasn't much talent on this offense, but they were still really productive because Brian Dable is a great coach. And if Darren Waller can be that number one receiving option on this offense with Saquon back there and they upgraded the offensive line, this team's going to be really good. And if Darren Waller can just stay healthy, that's the one thing.
yep.
It's so scary. But if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a league winning tight end where he's being drafted, and you just get a solid, safe backup behind him, and you're perfect. You're set.
And if Dimes can just grow off of his, continue to grow from off his great season last season, that's great. Darren Waller's got a great quarterback thrown to him. He's on a great offense. I love Darren Waller. Yeah, top three tight end, Darren Waller. Book it.
And I mean, Daniel Jones was so good last year, and he's improving, and he's looked pretty good in camp. He's looked like he's improved in camp, and I mean, Darren Waller went off the other day, and there was a Giants beat reporter saying that finally Daniel Jones has to throw to a different receiver. So it looks like they're off to a pretty good rapport.
Yeah, I actually I laughed because I did see that too. That's funny. I bet I have a feeling Daniel Jones is going to absolutely hyper target this dude.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like that Travis Kelce conversation we mentioned. If they can make this guy the wide receiver one, that is going to pay off, and he'll finish as a top two or three tight end, like a Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce. So
Yeah,
it's
he could finish above Mark Andrews.
mhm.
Top two, maybe a big top two.
Yeah, if Zay Flowers takes a big step up, like I talked about, and TJ
Yeah,
Hawkins, then he could definitely finish higher then because he's just going to be more of a focal point.
he just has to stay healthy. That's what it comes down to.
If he plays a full season, he's a top three tight end lock because he's a beast.
Yeah.
But is there any other hot takes you wanted to mention? Anything else you had in your mind?
I think real quick, I like to mention DK Metcalf. Right now he's being drafted middle of the third round. I think what is he being drafted like wide receiver 15 ish. Right around there. Is that right? Where do you see him being drafted? Like as what wide receiver?
Yep, 14.
14. Yeah, I think he's going to be a better than top.
15.
I think he'll be a
15.
top eight not tight end, sorry, wide receiver. He had a good year last year, but his touchdowns weren't there. You add you add the touchdowns that he's supposed to get, that he should be getting, which we're projecting he's going to do this year. I think he'll be top eight wide receiver.
Yeah, DK had a lot of touchdowns left to be desired last year. That Geno connection definitely could have had like 4 or 5 more touchdowns that could have happened. So I like that pick. I think he's being slept on just because of Jackson Smith and Jigba. There's no one really else that I was thinking of. I did want to talk about just something that we haven't mentioned that's pretty big news that affects fantasy is Tim Patrick tearing his
Mm,
ACL again. Unfortunately, he will be out for season. So I guess that does move Cortland Sutton up a little bit because they were both outside receivers and kind of redundant. So Cortland Sutton was moved down tremendously because of Patrick coming back, but now Sutton's going to be the main outside receiver. And you also have to move Jerry Jeudy up just a little bit, maybe if you don't have him too
yeah.
high, because I mean, he's going to be the number one focal point now. And there's not too many people competing for targets.
Uh, Man, I feel bad for that dude. I was excited to see him back because I feel like he was going to be the dude behind Judy. But yeah, that's too bad.
Sucks, man. He looked really good before he got hurt 2 years ago, and he hasn't even got to play with a quarterback not named Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater. So I feel bad, man. Sucks.
Maybe it's a good thing. He would have had to play with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, the way he played last year. True. But all right, that was a fun episode. Stay tuned to the NFL Seekers podcast. We'll have another fantasy episode next week and another deep dive. So, yeah, leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe.
Peace.
Peace.